dance with a man, whose dance with a girl, whose dance with the Prince of Wales. It was simply grand, he said, talking band, and she said, delightful, sir. Glory, glory, alleluia, I'm the luckiest of females, for I've danced with a man, who's danced with a girl, who danced with the Prince of Wales.
I simply don't understand this huge fuss because your name was mentioned in the court circular.
If I'm to believe the American newspapers, I'm the most envied woman in the British Empire.
Goodness gracious, why on earth shouldn't it be known that you were my guest?
No, David, don't be upset. We knew that something like this was bound to happen.
I suppose so, but there's no other way of dealing with the situation except by being perfectly straightforward.
I agree, David. But we do have to be careful until my divorce is got through. Oh, David, I shall miss you while I'm at Felixstowe.
So shall I, darling. But I shall come up and see you as often as I can. And then once you're free, we can be together always.
There you are, Archbishop. Cuttings and photographs of the pair of them. All from American journals, thank God, not British. But how long can that last? And letters of complaint from all over the world.
I've been receiving much of the same, and so has Her Majesty. Now, this collection must have been accumulating for some time, Prime Minister. May one ask why you didn't concern yourself somewhat earlier?
I wasn't very well during the summer. They didn't want to worry me more than they absolutely had to. Even so, I should have realized what was in the wind. Harding tried to tell me often enough.
Perhaps you thought that this infatuation wouldn't last.
I certainly hoped that it wouldn't. But the King's appetite for her company becomes more conspicuous every day. Unless it is contained, one way or another, it must burst into scandal.
Well, I'm glad you're aware of the danger at last.
A moral scandal we might weather. It's a constitutional scandal we must avoid. So long as Mrs. Simpson remains married, we are more or less safe.
It's quite good.
But you don't see them.
What's the answer?
And so, evidence has now been proved of your husband's adultery. The witnesses, hotel staff, etc., mostly live in Maidenhead. It would therefore be convenient if we had the case heard at Reading.
London would be more convenient to me.
Send to me, Mrs. Simpson, but the London courts are fully booked for the next 15 months. Reading Assizes would be more convenient to the witnesses. But Reading Assizes are not taking cases of divorce. Well, the best we can do, if you wish to avoid delay...
I do wish to avoid delay.
...is to have the case put down for hearing at Ipswich, which is convenient to nobody.
That's certainly true, Mr. Goddard. I believe I shall have to take a house in the area to have the necessary residential qualifications.
I congratulate you on your knowledge of the law.
My knowledge of divorce, Mr. Goddard. Now, what I don't like about having the hearing in Ipswich is it makes it all seem very backstreet. Of course, I don't wish to court publicity. On the other hand, I don't wish to seem to be evading it. And Ipswich makes it seem just like that.
Ah, here is one answer to that, dear lady. Allow me to present Mr. Norman Burkitt, King's Counsel.
I'm sorry to keep you both. This is my junior, Frampton, who'll take notes.
Morning. By engaging a barrister, Mr. Burkitt's reputation, we automatically refute any charge of trying to do the thing on the sly. Or on the cheap.
It's quite straightforward. But as we all know, some hard things may be said. Mrs. Simpson, you're quite sure that you want to go ahead with this divorce?
What sort of hard things, Mr. Burkitt?
You can hardly need me to say, after the divorce, there's bound to be speculation.
I can only repeat what I've already said to Walter Monkton, who's been one of my chief advisors in this matter. It's ridiculous to imagine I have any idea of marrying the king.
But that will not stop people from imagining it.
Then I shall have to learn to live in peace with their imaginings.
If we sell arms to the insurgents, we shall be in trouble at Geneva. If we sell arms to the government forces, we shall annoy Mussolini and Hitler.
What do you suggest?
We're left with these alternatives. Either we can sell arms to both sides, in which case we shall be accused of cynical exploitation of the Spanish Civil War, or we can sell arms to neither side, the only sensible thing to do. Am I boring you, Prime Minister?
Tiring me. Anthony. Tell me, have you received any letters or other correspondence about the king?
Yes, I have. I've been very busy.
We may have difficulties there. I'd be obliged if you'd not trouble me too much with foreign affairs just now.
What do you propose to do about the king? Teach him his duty?
He shouldn't need teaching with the parents and the upbringing that he's had.
Clearly, the gravity of your attitude's justified. He does need teaching.
And if he won't listen?
Have you spoken to him?
I think of doing so all the time, and I dread it.
You once said that he told you you could always speak to him about anything. Perhaps this is the time to remind him of your privilege.
Kings like this one do not care to be reminded of other people's privileges.
Well, then they should remember them of their own accord. He conferred it. You must exercise it.
Won't you sit down, Mr. Berkey?
Oh, thank you. There's no reason why the case should not be entirely straightforward, sir.
Yet I feel so much for Mrs. Simpson. It's a nasty thing to sit and listen to. Something squalid about it all.
It is the conventional way, sir. One of the few ways of advancing such cases. The judge will almost certainly award a decree nisi. As you probably know, this means that a definite period, 6 months, must pass before the divorce becomes absolute. The idea is that during this 6 months, if anyone should suspect Simpson of collusion, they'll have a chance to prove it and get the divorce quashed.
Well, that all seems quite straightforward.
Oh, yes. Apart from anything else, we know that Simpson really means to marry this woman that he was with. No, sir, you need have no fears for your friend, Mrs. Simpson, as far, that is, as this case is concerned.
Very well, Max. You propose, you said on the telephone, to issue a statement.
A statement, Theo, in the Evening Standard about Mrs. Simpson.
Now, what do you know about Mrs. Simpson?
Well, in the ordinary way of news gathering, T.G., I know that she has commenced divorce proceedings against her husband, that you are acting as her solicitor, and that Norman Burkett is to be her barrister. True so far?
Yes.
And therefore undoubtedly news. What have you to add?
Nothing. Indeed, I'm going to subtract from it. The king's friend is getting a divorce from her faithless husband. It is only news if she is doing so in order to become yet friendlier with the king.
And what makes you think she isn't?
We have her personal assurance that she has no intention of marrying the king. So her divorce, therefore, ceases to be news. Do a favor to an old friend, Max. Sleep on it.
That much of a favor, T.G., I will indeed do. For an old friend.
And so, sir, I suggest you get in touch with Beaverbrook and propose a compromise.
Send for him, sir, and make it quite clear that while you have no desire to stop his reporting the proceedings in court, you ask his help in preventing any press announcements beforehand.
Send for his lordship, do you think? Well, let's have a friendly telephone call and I'll invite him for a drink. Huh?
Very good, sir.
The barons of the press are a formidable crew.
Oh, I don't want another Runnymede on my hands.
A drink and a quiet word or two, sir? Well, what could be more agreeable? Not today, sir, if you will excuse me. I have a raging toothache and I must go to my dentist. Tomorrow I shall probably have to spend in bed. Then, shall we say Friday? Well, thank you, sir, for your sympathy. Good morning, sir. Miss Patty, please ring Mr. Ernest Simpson. Make an appointment for him to come and see me tomorrow.
The King asks you to excuse him, Prime Minister. He's just received a telephone call which may detain him for some moment. I believe he's expecting to discuss with you the review of the fleet.
That is what I have come for.
Yes. I'd like you, Prime Minister, to raise another matter with the King. think you know what I'm referring to. Prime Minister, the day will come very soon when you'll be forced to intervene in this matter of the King and Mrs. Simpson. Now, I beg you to address yourself to this affair now, before you're compelled to.
As long as Mrs. Simpson remains married, Alec, we have a formal safeguard.
Yes, but we don't know how long that may be.
For some time now, I have been thinking almost continuously of this predicament.
Prime Minister, I really do believe it's time to act.
I had hoped that the problem might be staved off until after the coronation.
But that's 7 months away. Even if the king were crowned, how would that help us if he still preserved his inclination for Mrs. Simpson?
What exactly is his inclination?
Well, I don't know its exact extent, Prime Minister, but it is becoming steadily more obsessive. You will speak with him, Prime Minister.
Good afternoon, Mr. Baldwin. Shall you be long, Prime Minister? I've received a message. I find I must go down to Sandringham this afternoon.
I'll not be long, sir. It might be convenient if Major Harding remained with us.
Hey, Alec, would you organize a car for me, please, to run me down to Suffolk?
Norfolk, sir? Sandringham, I thought you said, sir.
Well, what's the odds? East Anglia.
Are you out of London for long, sir?
Oh, no, not for long. Only till tomorrow afternoon. See about that car right away, would you, Alec? Now, Mr. Baldwin, this review. So sorry I have to hurry you.
Hope it won't be too dreary if you down here all alone.
I can always come up to London for a day or two.
Yes, quiet your life until the end of October, the better. You want any publicity?
Yes. Well, you'll come again and see me soon.
Of course I will. I gotta be terribly careful. They're watching me like hawks. They're waiting for me to put my foot in it. There's no doubt about it that some of them would be delighted to be quit of me.
David, you must be imagining things. They can't get rid of you. You're much too popular. And people love you. Surely there can't be any harm if you come here to see me again. Or even stay longer now.
I can't. I gotta be back in London for the weekend.
What?
See Beaverbrook, stop him publicizing your divorce.
Of course. Where'd you have to London?
Down to the fort. I'd come back and see you on Monday for that.
Yes, I'd like it very much.
God, all this was settled.
She's been my guest on the Narlin. She's been my guest at Balmoral. And now that she's to divorce her husband, there's notoriety which is distressing her.
A divorce must always cause distress.
And the notoriety makes the distress worse. In this case, due to me. I therefore have a duty to protect her. Will you assist me?
In what way, sir?
In the way of reticence. By all means, report the divorce proceedings, but do not anticipate them or follow them up with speculation. In fact, the more that you could limit publicity after the event, the more grateful I should be.
Well, there's bound to be a lot of public interest, sir, in the future of such a lady as this.
But less if you use your influence, your power, to discourage it.
Major Harding. Ah, yes. Yeah, that's right. I knew it was. Alec? Good evening.
Good of you to see me, Prime Minister. Sorry to bother you like this at the weekend. There is something vital I feel you ought to know.
What is it, Alec?
Well, a date has been fixed for the hearing of Mrs. Simpson's divorce. October the 27th. I've confirmed that with Walter Monckton. Now, if a decree nisi is awarded for 6 months, it'll become absolute just before the end of April, giving the king a chance to marry her before his coronation in May.
Surely he can't even dream of such a marriage. It would destroy him. He couldn't be crowned with her. He couldn't be crowned at all.
Well, if despite everything else the country still wanted him, he might well feel that...
The Archbishop would not crown him. What makes you think he might marry?
Well, it has to be acknowledged as a possibility. His attachment to Mrs. Simpson becomes more obsessive every day. Now, this thing can be contained, Prime Minister, if you insist, first, that Mrs. Simpson's divorce proceedings be dropped immediately, and second, that he should cease to be so public in his attentions towards her. Now, Prime Minister, it is absolutely essential that you warn the king and urge him to prevent this divorce from going through.
I must say, I don't relish the prospect of broaching this to the king.
Yes, well, I can see that, Prime Minister. But you are the only person who can intervene with any effect. He must not be allowed to say that he hadn't been warned about the implications of Mrs. Simpson's divorce.
I'll think it over, Alec.
Prime Minister, you really must face up to what has to be done. It is essential that the king should not publicly flaunt this association. Now, he's going to be at the fort until tomorrow, which is Monday at noon. If you telephone him there, you can arrange an appointment.
I wish there was some other way to handle this matter.
Prime Minister, if these divorce proceedings cannot be halted immediately, the danger to the king, the danger to the crown itself, will become greater every day.
Very well, Alec. I'll do as you suggest. I'll telephone the king tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Max is convinced, Esmond. Now we're here to convince you. After all, you're chairman of the Newspaper Proprietors Association.
Well, the king has asked me to help by suppressing advanced publicity in the Simpson divorce and then limiting publicity after it. The reasons he gave were that Mrs. Simpson is ill, unhappy, and distressed by the thought of notoriety. Notoriety will attach to her only because she was his guest on the Norland. Now, as the publicity would be due to her association with himself, he felt that it was his duty to protect her. Now, these reasons appeared satisfactory to me. I hope they will to you.
So we're going to suggest to all newspapers that they simply report the proceedings of the court.
And leave the matter at that. Now, will you support me, Esmond?
Yes.
Kemsley?
That's all very well, but I was at a house party last weekend, and at least one person, well qualified to know what he was saying on the subject, gave his opinion that the king might, after all, wish to marry Mrs. Simpson.
He might wish to, but he knows that he can't.
Does he? He seems pretty fond of his own way to me.
Goddard has assured me personally that there is no possibility of such a marriage.
So you agree, then? Only the bare facts of the case to be reported.
Oh, very well. I suppose, morally speaking, one has to believe it.
Yes? Prime Minister?
I have telephoned the king, as you suggested, and...
Good. Shall you be seeing him at the fort or here in London?
Neither. They say he's gone to Sandringham. At Sandringham, they say he hasn't arrived yet. Can you arrange this meeting, Alec? I can't fiddle about on the telephone all day. Please make it for tomorrow, preferably in the morning.
I'll do what I can, Prime Minister. Has the king arrived yet? No? When are you expecting him? Very late tonight. Well, look, would you please tell him that both the Prime Minister and Major Harding have been trying to contact him on urgent business since 9 o'clock this morning, and it would be very much appreciated if he would communicate with one or other of us.
Let's get back.
Of course.
Wish I didn't have to.
David, you must go back. You've nothing to fear.
Oh, God. They'll all be waiting. Alec will be buttoned up to the chin in disapproval. Baldwin will be fussing about like a headmistress on prize-giving day.
Well, you're a match for both of them. Remember, David, you're the king.
Since your message said it was urgent, Alec, I hope I needn't apologize for ringing you so early. Hmm? Well, what's he want? Mrs. Simpson's divorce is Mrs. Simpson's business, not a matter in which the Prime Minister can intervene.
But you may do so, sir.
Let me repeat, Alec, that Mrs. Simpson's divorce is Mrs. Simpson's business.
But you can at least discuss the situation with him, sir. With respect, sir, with the greatest possible respect, you must receive the Prime Minister. Yes, he'll come to Sandringham. Today, if you wish.
I would rather see him at the fort. No, Alec, you don't understand. Tell Stanley Baldwin that I shall receive him tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. At the fort. Yes, yes, yes. Goodbye. Nice to see you. Kind of you to receive me.
Not at all. Shall we go for a little walk before we begin our discussion?
Do you remember, sir, you once said that I could always speak freely to you about anything?
Yes, yes. It was on a train. I was Prince of Wales.
And now you are king, sir, and now there is a lady in the case. Does what you said still hold good?
It does. Well, Prime Minister?
It's cold out here, sir. I beg your pardon, but could we go inside? The country is in transition, sir, between the old age and the new.
The country is always in transition between one age and another.
Of course. But you are the sovereign we need to see us through this particular transition.
Very civil of you to say so, Mr. Baldwin.
You have all the advantages a man can have. You're still young, you've had the fine example of your father, you're fond of your house, your garden, you're fond of children, everything about you inclines your people to love and trust you, as indeed they have done ever since you were a boy. But the years do go on, sir, and now you have one disadvantage. You are not married, and perhaps you should be. And because you are not married, there is rumor.
What rumor?
Not in this country so much, but in America, in Europe, even in the Dominions. Rumor that you are seriously bound to a certain lady.
It is true. I have a friend.
Sir, do you think I might have a whiskey and soda? I do not find this an easy conversation to carry on.
Yes, by all means.
Oh, please, allow me, sir.
Will you help yourself, Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you, sir. And you, sir? Say when?
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin, but I never take a drink before 7 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, of course. During the past 3 generations, enormous respect has grown up for the monarchy, but if this kind of rumor is allowed to do its work, that respect could dwindle and vanish. It could vanish in a matter of months or even weeks, sir, and once gone, I doubt if it could be restored.
What? Because the king has a friend?
You may think me Victorian, sir, and out of date. But I think I know how to interpret the mind of the British people, and I say this, that although standards have got lower since the war, it only leads people to expect a higher standard from their king. People are talking, sir, about you and this American lady, Mrs. Simpson. I have had many nasty letters written by people who admired your father, but who do not like the way you're going on. And now the American papers are full of it. Even the Chinese vernacular papers. The effect of this comment in the American press will be to sap the position of the throne unless it is stopped. I do not believe, sir, that you can go on like this and get away with it.
What do you mean by not get away with it, Mr. Bolton?
I think you know our people, sir. They'll tolerate a lot in private life, but they will not stand for this kind of thing in the life of a public figure.
Please do.
And when they read in the court circular of Mrs. Simpson's visit to Balmoral, they resented it.
The lady is my friend. I don't wish to let her in through the back door, but quite openly.
The importance of the crown, sir, is greater than ever before, because it is the last link of empire. And I am very anxious about the effect of this American criticism in that respect and its repercussions here at home. You are popular, sir, but no popularity can stand against such criticism.
I hope you would agree that I've carried out my duties with dignity.
I do agree, sir, and all the more because I know that the duties of royalty are not much to your liking.
I know that, unlike my father, I'm not naturally fitted to be king. But I have tried to mix with my people and to understand their problems, and in my own way to carry on the duties of kingship.
I have nothing but respect, sir, for the way that you've carried out your public duties, and the country would agree with me there.
Very well, then. What more can be said?
There is danger in this coming divorce case, sir. There will be gossip during the period before it is made absolute. The press may feel they have to break silence.
The press have agreed to report the divorce in the usual way, briefly and without comment.
But you can't keep them quiet for long, and when they do give tongue, it will be a very grave situation for the country, and an even graver situation for you, sir. Can you not have this divorce put off?
Well, that's the lady's private business. I've no right to interfere in the affairs of an individual. In fact, it would be wrong if I attempted to influence Mrs. Simpson just because she happens to be the friend of the king.
If you will not halt this divorce of Mrs. Simpson's...
I've said I've no right to halt it.
If then it is to go forward, everyone will be talking and sides will be taken. There will be factions, sir.
There must not be factions.
And there will not be if only after the hearing Mrs. Simpson will leave the country for a while. Will you ask her to go abroad for 6 months?
Mr. Bolton, for Mrs. Simpson, England is abroad. She's our guest, Prime Minister. She's my guest. I cannot live without her. In fact, I cannot do my job without her. For me, Wallace is the only woman in the world. Let us just agree that you and I will settle this matter together. I will not have anyone interfering.
Very well, sir. Called her Wallace.
Did you ask him whether he had any notion of marrying her?
I confined myself to the matters of the divorce.
So you didn't mention marriage at all?
No, but his answers to my questions about Mrs. Simpson's divorce indicated that his motives were not those of a man who planned to marry her.
And yet he called her the only woman in the world.
He said that he could not live without her. You see, everywhere there are doubts, Prime Minister.
If he would see me, I could try to resolve them.
I'd be only too glad for someone else to have a go.
If you could warn him firmly of the dangers inherent in the slightest idea of marriage, I would say better for him, better for all of us.
No, I only said I could try. Although I was close to his father, I've hardly known this king since he was a little boy. I think he quite liked me then, but time has put us apart.
Archbishop, you have the right, as well as the duty, to warn the king that this marriage cannot even be dreamt of.
Should not someone warn her also?
Well, I've spoken with Mrs. Simpson's solicitor. Now, he believes absolutely that marriage is not envisaged by the lady. At least, that's what he says. I suppose we could send him to her again in the natural way of business and get him to sound her out more fully to make sure she realizes that marriage with the king is absolutely inconceivable.
Very well, please do that. And I shall ask the king this afternoon to receive you, Archbishop.
Good.
No. We agreed, Mr. Baldwin, that you and I would settle this by ourselves. I will not discuss Mrs. Simpson with the Archbishop of Canterbury. That's flat. You and you alone have the right to advise me.
Then will your majesty accept my advice? Will you persuade Mrs. Simpson to give up the divorce proceedings against her husband?
I have no more right to interfere in Mrs. Simpson's private affairs than the Archbishop has to interfere in mine.
Rumors, mere rumors.
They're doing him harm.
How can they be stopped?
Oh, by withdrawing your suit. So long as you are still married to Mr. Simpson, you cannot, even by the wildest flight of rumor, be married to the king.
Are you advising me to withdraw?
No. I'm merely warning you what is being put about. But I would ask you once more to deny it.
Very well, Mr. Goddard. Once more I repeat, the very idea of my marrying with your king is in every way ridiculous. Will that stop the rumors?
No. But it will reassure the king's friends.
But how can one believe such reassurances when one's faced with this? The New York Journal, Archbishop.
King will wed Wally.
Yes, it states quite categorically that the king will marry Mrs. Simpson and that after the coronation she'll become his consort.
Well, at least they seem to be letting us off having her as queen.
I wouldn't be altogether sure of that, Archbishop.
King Edward believes that the most important thing for the peace and welfare of the world is an intimate understanding and relationship between England and America. What deplorable prose.
A deplorable prospect.
What was that, Major Hardy?
Nothing, Archbishop.
Marriage with this very gifted lady may help to bring about that beneficial cooperation between English-speaking nations. Oh, dear.
But after all, gentlemen, Mrs. Simpson told me personally, only yesterday, that any idea of her marrying with our king was ridiculous. Her word.
Well, this kind of thing can still do injury.
And it does make it rather galling for the British press, who've agreed amongst themselves not to say anything. But will they stick to that?
Indeed.
Gentlemen, pure speculation. I suppose others could be tempted to speculate as well. Any British paper which went in for that sort of thing would achieve enormous circulation.
Followed by public disgust with it and with its proprietor.
To say nothing of the legal consequences.
We pay rather expensive lawyers a lot of money, Walter, to keep us on an even keel with the law. It is policy which is at issue.
I wonder what the advertisers would make of it.
Too dangerous a matter to gamble on.
I don't think you need worry yourself for the time being. The press is still quiescent.
The popular press, that is. But a little bird has whispered in my ear that Dawson of the Times is eager to make a statement.
What kind of a statement?
The Times should make its position clear. It should sum the known facts, make calculations as to the possible outcome.
Speculations, Dawson.
And therefore, the Times should provide serious comment from the moral and constitutional standpoints. The only trouble is that we of the Times are ashamed.
We're ashamed to speak.
Ashamed of the matter of which we should be speaking. Now, see here, Monkton. Here's a letter which I received today from a British resident of the United States. Now, both the tone and substance of this letter demonstrate the disgust and dismay of what the correspondent has read in the American press about the King and Mrs. Simpson. Read it.
I am one of those who had a deep admiration for the present monarch when he was Prince of Wales, and looked forward to the day when he would bring a new vision and a new inspiration to the task of kingship. In common, I fear, with a great many others, I have been bitterly disappointed. The doings of the king, as reported in the American press, have, in the course of a few months, transformed Great Britain, as envisaged by the average American, from a sober and dignified realm into a dizzy Balkan musical comedy attuned to the rhythm of jazz. To the American man in the street, Italy is Mussolini, Germany is Hitler, Russia is Stalin. For many years, Great Britain was George V. But the prevailing American opinion is that the foundations of the British throne are undermined, its moral authority, its honor, and its dignity cast into the dustbin. To put the matter bluntly, George V was an invaluable asset to British prestige abroad. Edward VIII has proved himself an incalculable liability. But I cannot refrain from saying that nothing would please me more than to hear that Edward VIII had abdicated his rights in favor of the heir presumptive, who I am confident would be prepared to carry on in the sterling tradition established by his father. In my view, it would be well to have such a change take place while it is still a matter of individuals and before the disquiet has progressed to the point of calling in question the institution of monarchy itself. Yours faithfully, Britannicus in partibus infidelium.
Well, gentlemen, you wonder that we of the Times are ashamed. What will you do? The other papers will take their lead from you. I shall do whatever you wish, Prime Minister. I wish you to do nothing.
And we think that the other papers will then continue to do nothing?
Well, Lord Beaverbrook and Mr. Harmsworth both think so. The risks are too great. In any case, they've agreed to carry nothing beyond a factual report of the divorce case, until and unless they have cause to think that they've been misinformed about the King's intention.
And what, can anybody tell me, is the King's intention?
If I might take that letter to the King, it might make him realize that his time is running out. Agreement or no agreement, he can hardly expect the press to keep silence forever. I believe it's time he made himself plain, both to the kingdom and to his friends.
Mr. Justice Hawke.
My lord, I appear in this case with my learned friend, Mr. Walter Frampton. I call on the petitioner at once.
Will you repeat after me? I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I shall give to this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give to the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mrs. Simpson, is your full name Wallace Simpson?
How did this case come here? Oh, I see. Yes. Yes. I've been told.
Your names are Wallace Simpson. You live at Beach House, Felixstowe.
Yes.
Is your London address 16 Cumberland Terrace, Regent's Park?
Yes.
And were you married to the respondent?
The petition alleges she lives in Bryanston Court.
She has left that address, my lord. Were you married to Ernest Aldrich Simpson on July the 21st, 1928, in the Register Office in the district of Chelsea?
Yes.
And I believe afterwards you lived with him in 12 Upper Berkeley Street in Bryanston Court in London.
Yes.
Has there been any issue of the marriage?
No.
Did you live happily with the respondent until the autumn of 1934?
Yes.
Was it at this time that the respondent's manner towards you changed?
Yes.
What was the change?
He was indifferent and often went away alone on weekends.
Did you complain about this?
Yes, I did.
Did he continue to do what you complain of, go away alone and stay away at weekends?
Yes.
Yes. On Christmas Day 1934, did you find a note lying on your dressing table?
Yes.
Is this the note?
Yes.
Will you hand that to my lord?
When did you say she was married?
July the 21st, 1928, my lord. The note that's just been passed to my lord, was that the note you found on your dressing table in Christmas 1934?
Yes.
You see, my lord, it is in a woman's handwriting. That is so, is it not, Mrs. Simpson?
Yes.
They may be in a woman's handwriting, but it is not very legible.
Oh, no, here it is typed, my lord. You'll probably find that easier to follow.
This evidence is against nobody. I would not understand it.
Oh, it's from a woman, my lord, to Mr. Simpson. Did the finding of this note cause you considerable distress?
Yes.
Did you complain to your husband at the time?
No, I did not, in the hopes that the condition would improve.
Yes. And did it improve?
No.
Shortly after Easter 1936, did you receive a second letter? Just look at that. Is that envelope addressed to you?
Yes.
You pass that to my lord. The letter inside is to your husband. The envelope is addressed to you. Did you come to the conclusion that the letter was inadvertently placed in that envelope?
Yes.
After reading the contents of the letter, did you then consult your solicitor?
Yes.
What is the importance of the letter?
If I may say with great respect, my lord, the importance of the letter is merely historical.
She consulted her solicitors on account of something which could not be evidence in this court.
I agree, my lord. And did they report to you on the result of their observations?
Yes.
And did you subsequently receive information on which your petition in this present case is based?
Yes.
On July the 23rd this year, did you write that letter to your husband?
Yes.
Will you read it out loud, please?
Dear Ernest, I've just learned that while you've been away, instead of being on business as you led me to believe, you've been staying at a hotel in Bray with a lady. I'm sure you realize this is conduct which I cannot overlook and must insist you do not continue to live here with me. This only confirms the suspicions I've had for a long time. I'm therefore instructing my solicitors to take proceedings for divorce.
Do you confirm that you wrote that letter to your husband?
Yes.
Will you just look at this hotel registration form? In whose handwriting is the signature on that form?
Mr. Simpson's.
Your husband?
Yes.
And that is in the name Ernest Simpson?
Yes.
Thank you, my lord. Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Archibald Travers, you're employed as a floor waiter in the Hotel de Paris at Bray.
I was employed.
In July the 21st last, you were employed as a floor waiter at the hotel?
Yes.
One of the rooms in your charge on that day was room number 4.
Yes.
Was that the room occupied by a gentleman and a lady?
Yes.
Did you take in breakfast?
Yes.
Where were they when you took in breakfast?
They was in bed together.
Is there one double bed in the room which they had, or are there 2 beds together?
One double bed.
On July the 23rd, the following day, you were off duty.
Yes. The room was looked after by my relief.
On July the 30th, did you attend with your relief at a solicitor's office in Leadenhall Street?
Yes.
Was that the lady who was with the gentleman?
No.
Thank you. I now call Dante Busclia. Mr. Busclia, you're employed as a waiter at the Hotel de Paris.
Yes, sir.
Did you take in any breakfast to room number 4 on July the 23rd?
Yes, sir.
Whom did you find in the room?
A lady and a gentleman in the bed together.
Is this the lady?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Busclia. You may step down.
Thank you.
On that evidence, I ask for a decree nisi with costs against the respondent, my lord.
Well, I suppose I must come to the conclusion that there was adultery in this case. There is one question which is in my mind.
I assume what is in your lordship's mind.
How do you know what is in my mind? What is it I have in my mind, Mr. Burkitt?
With great deference, my lord, I thought your lordship might have in mind what is known as ordinary hotel evidence, where the lady's name is not disclosed. With respect, my lord, I thought that might have been in your lordship's mind.
That is what it must have been, Mr. Burkitt. I am glad for your help.
The lady's name is disclosed in the petition, my lord, so I now ask for a decree nisi with costs against the respondent.
Yes, costs against the respondent, I'm afraid. In these unusual circumstances. So you may have it with costs.
A decree nisi with costs, my lord.
Huh? Yes, I suppose so.
Thank you, my lord. We could hardly have hoped for better. Decree nisi to be made absolute in 6 months.
This way. I've had the car go round the back.
But we'll have to hurry. Dogs are found. Vixen breaks from cover.
Well, they've kept their word. Only the bare proceedings.
I'm told a mob of reporters was outside the courts at Ipswich.
King sent his own car to carry her away. Well, if he goes on behaving like that...
There'll be more and more reporters, and sooner or later there'll be something like this. A cable from the embassy in Washington with the pick of American headlines.
King's Mall, Reno'd, in Wolsey's hometown. I never knew Wolsey came from Ipswich.
Yes, quite a coincidence. Wolsey had quite a lot to do with royal intrigue of this nature. Life was easier for him than it is for me, of course. He could shut people up in the Tower. That's where I'd put her, if I could.
Where would you put him, Prime Minister?
Darling, I'm so delighted to hear from Burkitt that it all went so smoothly.
Well, what about the ugly scene as we drove away? It won't be mentioned in the papers?
No, I don't think so, but very little anyway. I've dealt with all that.
Oh, good. Would you like a drink?
And you know, Max, contact the papas of the independent papers. They've all agreed to keep the story to a minimum.
Oh, that's wonderful. To celebrate my freedom, shall we spend a quiet evening in?
Let's.
David, there was an article about us in the New York Journal.
Really? What did it say?
King will wed Wally.
King will wed Wally. Well, will he?